So one thing I preach all the time is to learn jazz standards by ear and not by sheet music. And a lot of subscribers come back at me with some questions like, okay, Brent, I get that I can learn the melody by ear. That makes sense. But chord progressions, I have no idea where to even start with hearing chord progressions by ear. So in today's video, I'm going to break this down. I'm actually going to go through a chord progression with you and learn it without my instrument, without sheet music, and show you my process. Let's do this thing. All right, what's up? Brent here from LearnJazzStandards.com, which is a blog, a podcast, and videos, all geared towards helping you become a better jazz musician. And hey, if you haven't subscribed to this channel before, make sure you do that down below so you can get locked into all the great content that I come out with here on YouTube. So yes, indeed, chord progressions are really hard to hear by ear, and especially if you're starting from scratch, it can be difficult. And you may have heard some cop-out answers before from people, like, well, all you have to do is just keep learning lots of songs by ear and you'll start recognizing those chord progressions. And that's actually very true, and that's a big part of it, is simply doing it over and over and over again. And pretty soon, you start hearing chord progressions by ear. You'll recognize them, that it's a 2-5-1 or a 1-6-2-5, to the point where for me, if I go to a gig and I don't really know a song that's being played, as long as it's not way too far out or too harmonically complex, I can actually probably pick it up by ear on the spot. So that's the level we want to aim towards. But I understand that for many people, this is a cop-out answer. This is not really aimed towards those who are starting from scratch. So I'm going to go over how to actually do that. Before I go over an actual example of this, there are two preliminary skills that I think you need to be working on in order to do that. So let me go over those right now. So number one is intervals. Now, intervals is what I call a fundamental of ear training, and I'll tell you in a second, it'll become apparent pretty soon why intervals are important as it pertains to learning chord progressions, but I consider intervals the building block. So you're going to want to learn how to recognize intervals, such as this one. That interval is a minor third ascending, or this one. That interval is a major third descending. And even over and above that, you're going to want to know how to sing. So if, I had a tone that sounded like this, da, and I wanted to know what a perfect fourth from that was, I should be able to sing it, da, da. That's a perfect fourth. So that's knowing your intervals. I really do think that's important, and you're going to see where I'm going with this. I'll link up a video in the card above that talks more about intervals and how to start learning intervals from scratch. All right, skill number two that you need to be working on, and this one is even more apparent with chord progressions, is you need to be able to recognize chords. All right, so if you hear a chord like this, then you need to know that that is a major triad, or maybe a chord like this, that is a dominant seventh chord. And the only way you can really do this is, of course, by knowing your intervals. For example, if I want to be able to take any pitch and sing a major seventh chord, if I start with do, do, da, 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 right? That's a major seventh, or you can whistle or hum. It doesn't matter. Okay, I also have a video all about learning chords from scratch, so you can go ahead and check that up in the card as well. But having all these skills, intervals and chords, is going to be very useful for what we're about to do right now. So I'm going to jump behind my computer right now. We're going to look at a mystery chord progression and start trying to figure out what these chords actually are. All right, here we are at our mystery chord progression here, and the only thing that I really know is that it is 8 bars long. Other than that, we don't know the key, we don't know anything, and I don't have my instrument right now. I don't have a piece of sheet music. So the first thing we need to do, of course, is just listen to the chord progression and see what it sounds like. So from the beginning. Okay, here's the repeat. Okay, that was it. All right, so the first thing that my ears are latching onto is that we have 2 cadences in here, and cadences just mean phrases, all right? So the first phrase happens here, it ends rather here, on the 3rd bar, okay? So the 3rd bar, I want to figure out what that chord is first, but the second cadence happened here in bar 7 right here, and I want to figure out what that chord is first before anything else. So let's listen one more time and really try to figure out what this third chord is. And in order to do that, I'm going to be really listening to the bass note, so especially listening to what the bass player is playing and try to see if we can't identify what the root of that chord is. All right, so let's listen to that again. Do. That was the note. Do. That was the bass note of the chord. So now you could just go to your instrument really quickly and figure out, okay, what is that note on your instrument, whatever instrument you play. I happen to have a relative pitch note that I just know. So do. Let's see. So do, do. I know that do is a G. Okay. G is the note that I just know, so I can actually deduce here that this is actually a B flat bass note here. Okay, so I know this is B flat. Again, you can just do this with your instrument. Don't have to have any super skills with relative pitch or anything like that. So this is a B flat. That's good to know. Let's figure out what the quality is. Now this is where it comes handy, of course, to know qualities of chords and be able to hear them. So let's listen really quickly to what that one sounds like. Okay, I was definitely hearing a major 7th there, definitely hearing a major 3rd. Automatically, I'm going, this is a major 7th chord. I know what it sounds like, so I know our first mystery chord is figured out. We have figured out the mystery to this one. It is a B flat major 7th chord. Okay, B flat major 7th chord. Now, let's focus on this next cadence. So this is going to be bar 7 here. What chord is that? So let's continue listening and try to figure that one. Okay, do. That is our note. That's our bass note. Now again, go to your instrument, figure that out. But like I said, I happen to know the note of G. G is my relative pitch note, so I know that this is a G bass note. And by the way, shout out to Amy Nolte because she's the one who taught me about figuring out your relative pitch note. We did that in a podcast episode together. I'll link that up above. All right. So now let's listen to the quality. That's obviously important. Now, you may have noticed it does sound different than the B flat major 7. So what is it? Let's listen. Oop, back a little bit more. Okay, this is definitely a minor 7th chord. I can hear it. I recognize it. I hear a minor 3rd. I hear a minor 7th in there. So this is definitely, my friends, a G minor 7th chord, right? You see how we're figuring this out? And yes, we are using intervals at our disposal here. This is really helping us put all the puzzle pieces together. So that's why intervals, like I was talking about before, is definitely important if we're starting from scratch, right? If we're starting from scratch and we just have no clue what we're hearing, all right? Okay, so now what I want to do, I'm going to go back to this first cadence here that had the B flat major 7th in it, and I want to figure out what this first chord is, this very first chord that comes up in the chord progression. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to latch my ear on to the bass note of that chord, and I'm going to sing that until I come to the B flat major. And then we're going to use intervals again to figure it out. All right, so let's start at the beginning and listen very closely. Okay, so the first note is do, do. Now that is a descending major 2nd interval. I just know that, and you can reverse that. Do, 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 da, do, da. So that would be B flat to C. That is the first 2 notes in a B flat major scale. D, do. So I know just from knowing intervals that this is going to be a C of some sort, okay? It's going to be a C note. What's the quality? Let's listen for that. Okay, it's hard to tell with the piano voicings exactly, but I'm sure that if we listen to this a few more times, you would hear that you don't hear a major 3rd in there. It just doesn't exist. So automatically, I'm going straight to minor 7th chord, okay? Straight to minor 7th. So we know that it's a C, and we know that it is a minor 7th. So C minor 7th is our first chord. Okay, now here's where some kind of fun theory magic starts to happen here. Now it's sort of like what is that game? It's not Jeopardy. It's Wheel of Fortune, right? On Wheel of Fortune, they start guessing, what the phrase is. So they, ask for vowels and all this stuff, and the letters start appearing. And pretty soon you start to see words in there, right? Like the word isn't complete, but you're like, oh, okay, that's what the word is. It's just not filled out yet. Well, that's what's happening in music theory too, if you have music theory knowledge. So now we're taking intervals, being able to hear chords, and our knowledge of music theory. And automatically, I'm looking at this B flat major seventh, and I have this suspicious feeling that it is a 1 chord, right? I have a suspicious feeling that we are sort of tonicizing this chord in some sort of way. So when I see this C minor 7, I know that that's a 2 chord in B flat majors, right? So I know the diatonic series and how that works. So automatically, I'm thinking 2, and then we have a 1. My best guess is that this mystery chord in bar 2 is going to be a dominant 7th chord. It's going to be an F7 because that's the 2, 5, 1 in the key of B flat major. And 2, 5, 1s, major 2, 5, 1s are the most important, most popular, most common chord progression in jazz harmony, okay? But let's not take anything for granted here. Let's go through, let's do the work. Let's listen to this, make sure that we're right. Okay, so I heard the bass didn't necessarily hit a root note. We had do, and then it kind of jumped up to this do dee da da do do do, and that was the B flat major 7. However, I'm starting to deduce some things just from listening to that, and I was listening to the piano voicing, and I can hear that there is definitely a major 3rd in there, and that's what the bass is outlining. That's what I hear in the piano. And I can hear a dominant sound to it, so a flat 7 in there as well. We could listen to it over and over again, but I'm just gonna break it for you right here. This is an F7 because I was hearing do, duh. I was also hearing a do, dee, dee, da, do, do, do. So it's almost like an implied perfect fourth. Dee, da. That's a perfect fourth interval. D, da. What's a perfect fourth away from C? It's F, right? C, F, B flat major 7th. But like I was already saying, I could almost just tell that this was going to be a 2, 5, 1 chord progression in B flat major already because I know music theory. And that's the beauty of this stuff, okay? All right, let's move on and figure out what this mystery chord is in bar 4 because, this one, I'm not sure if it's part of the next cadence, which has to do with the G minor 7th and in the 7th measure or not. So all we can do is listen to it and try to figure it out. So we know some information. Let's keep going. Back it up a bit. Okay, now the bass sounded a little bit muddy there, but I have keen ears. And so I was hearing da is B flat, da, do, da, do, 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 da, da. Da, da. See what I did there? So that's a perfect fourth interval right there. I was taking the perfect fourth octave below. It was going descending, and I just took it up an octave so we could hear the interval ascending there, and that's a perfect fourth interval. So what's a perfect fourth away from B flat? It's E flat, okay? So now we know that the note is E flat, and again, we could do this with our instrument too. You don't have to do it with intervals. You can just figure it out by figuring out the bass notes. But now let's listen for the quality. Flat. Okay, definitely a major 7th chord, right? So it's not a dominant 7th chord, it's not any of those things. It's definitely a major 7th chord from what I was hearing. I wasn't hearing minor, I was hearing major, and this would also play into my sense about what I know about jazz harmony, which is or just music in general, is that the 4 chord, usually, unless it's being altered, is a major 7th chord in a major key. So far we have a 2, 5, 1 in B flat major, and then we have the major 4 chord, okay? My guess is that this E flat major 7 is acting as a transition chord that's going to move into our next cadence. Are you following me so far? This is a lot of information, but let's hang in there. Okay, so we know that this chord is G minor 7th in bar 7. I want to figure out what the chord is in bar 5. So we're going to do the same thing that we did up here with the C minor 7th. We're going to listen for the bass note. I'm going to hold it out singing it until we get to that G. Sound good? Let's do it. Here it is. Do, do. Okay, so do was the bass note, do, and here's the G, do, do, do. Okay, so that is a major second, right? We just went over that with the B flat to the C. That's a major second descending. So I know that a major second, we know that that is going to be the 2 chord. It's going to be A. It's going to be A. So already, though, I know that this is a minor 7th chord. I'm starting to suspect that if that was an A note, that this might be another 2-5-1 just in a minor key. So the question is, what is the quality of that chord? And I already was listening to it, and I could tell that it wasn't the regular minor 7th chord, just like I heard with the C minor 7. It sounds different, so let's listen to it. Oop, back a little bit. Here it is. Okay, you hear that tasty piano voicing there? This is definitely a minor 7 flat 5 chord. Now, it's not necessarily easy to tell a minor 7 flat 5 chord or a half diminished chord from, even a diminished 7th chord could maybe confuse you, but we can tell that it sounds different, and I know that this is a G minor 7th chord. I suspect it's the 1 chord. In minor harmony, the 2 chord is a half diminished chord. So, whoops. We got an A minor 7, flat 5. Now again, my music theory brain's working here. If we have a 2 chord right here and a 1 chord, that means this is going to be a 5 chord. But again, let's not take anything for granted here. Let's go through the process and figure this out. So let's listen for the bass note. Here's the A. D. Okay, I heard do, di, do, di. What's that? Do, di. That interval is a perfect 4th, okay? So that is a D. That's a D note right there, right? A perfect 4th up from A is a D. The question is the quality. I already assume that it's a dominant 7th chord. The 5 chord is always a dominant 7th chord. And usually in minor harmony, in minor 2-5-1s, you hear an altered 7th chord. So let's a dominant 7th. So let's listen to it. Yeah, definitely. I definitely heard some alterations there. I almost thought I barely heard the sharp 11, but I'm not sure actually. Either way, this is a dominant 7th chord, and we know that the note is D. So we're going to go ahead and fill in the blank here. This is D7, and I'll just put flat 9. That's a common alteration. Okay, so A minor 7, flat 5, D7, flat 9, G minor 7. So this is a minor 2-5-1 in G minor. Okay. So there's only one more chord left, and this is a repeated phrase here. So let's just listen really quickly to what this 8th bar is going to be. Okay, so clear as day, all that really happened here, the bass note didn't change. So we have G for sure, and I heard a tension feeling that seemed to resolve to the C minor 7 again. I know what a 5-1 chord progression sounds like. I know that this was just simply taking this G minor 7 and turning it into a dominant 7th. And this G7 is acting as what we call a secondary dominant, or in this case, we call it the 5 of 2 if we're thinking about this in B flat major, right? So it's acting as a 5 chord to the 2 chord to turn the chord progression around. Technically, I know I'm positive that this is actually in the key of G minor, so we could almost relate all these chords to the key of G minor, but I also think it's easy just to think about this as relative keys. So 2-5-1 and B flat major 7, a 2-5-1 and G minor 7. They're relative to each other, the relative major and the relative minor, okay? So you may recognize as well, this is the first 8 bars of Autumn Leaves, right? The jazz standard Autumn Leaves, okay? So does this seem like a process and a lot of work? Yes, it does, but I guarantee you that if you're learning jazz standards or any song this way, you're going to know it so much better. It's going to be internalized so much better. You're going to understand it so much better. And the beautiful thing about doing this is, like I said at the beginning of this video, the more and more times that you do this, the more jazz standards you learn this way, the easier it gets. For example, the first time I heard this chord progression, we were listening to it, I knew immediately what the chord progression was. I recognized the entire thing. So I don't really have to worry about that so much. So this kind of training can be very helpful. And so if you're thinking about like some of these fundamentals of ear training, these intervals, these chords, hearing chord progressions, and you need a little more help with that, I would definitely suggest my ear training course. It's called How to Play What You Hear. And it's a course where we go through these fundamentals. We do quizzes. There's a process put in place and different supporting materials to help you start learning some of these fundamentals, because as you can see, they can be very helpful to have some very groundwork, rudimentary things down. So you can check that out at howtoplaywhatyouhear.com. Otherwise, there's of course ear training apps out there that you can check out that can help you with some of this stuff as well. All right, so here's what I want to hear from you in the comments below. How do you do this? Is there a certain way that you have a process for learning how to hear chord progressions from scratch? Or also let me know your questions down in the comments below as well. All right, that's all for today's video. Hopefully this was helpful for you. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the next video.